Good evening, Perry.
I own a motel not too far from you, and you'd be welcome to spend the night in one of the empty rooms if you'd like.
It burns! Oh, it burns! And I'm the devil.
Hello, everybody. This is Brian, and welcome to another episode of the Necronomicast. For this episode, it's going to be a lot of fun for you as a listener. We're going to have not one, but two interviews on this special episode. It will be a departure from the horror of Hollywood. But don't worry, horror fans. We will continue to bring the finest in horror commentary about movies, television, and books in the episodes ahead. That's our bread and butter. But we're taking a slight detour off the main road to take in the scenic sights that the world of the paranormal offers. In this episode, we will be talking to internationally known jazz musician Andrew Vogt, a friend of ours and a friend of the program, and the husband and wife real estate team of Jason and Courtney Birnstihl. Two different interviews about real-life paranormal experiences, both very credible sources. So, I invite you to get comfortable, settle in, dim the lights, and relax as we talk to Andrew Vogt and Jason and Courtney Birnstihl. Now, listen to this. You hear that? That is the music of our next guest, Mr. Andrew Vogt. He's calling in from the village of Wordland in Colorado. Yeah. He's a famous, internationally known, wonderful jazz musician. You can check him out at drewsblues.com. Zip and I met him originally. We became fast friends at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln School of Music, where we were in the UNL Jazz Ensemble together. And Andrew has quite a story to tell about a place he used to live in a rented house in Lincoln, Nebraska. Andrew, what's going on, man?
Hey, Brian. Nice to chat with you again. It's been a while.
It has been a while. Everything going well?
Of course. Up here in Rocky Mountain Highland. Yeah, it's great.
Any sightings of Sasquatch lately?
Not lately, no.
Not lately.
Yeah, not in 2017 anyway, so.
Right on. Well, that's another interview for another day. All right. All right, Andrew. Now, before we have to do this kind of disclaimer, you are a respected jazz musician and also a music educator. I mean, you have a certificate, you have a degree, but you're legally able to teach young musicians in the state of Colorado. Is this correct?
That's absolutely, yeah. Yeah, it's 4 days a week. That's what I do here.
Right on. So, I mean, we're not talking to some guy that's, mentally unstable any more than the rest of us.
Yeah. I mean, you and I go back, so there's a few things you could probably pull out that you might remember about me, but I'm pretty sane.
Yeah, we keep that stuff buried deep in the tomb on the podcast.
Yeah, nobody needs to know all these things.
Right on. So, listen, right after we started hanging out when we were in Jazz Ensemble together, I had the opportunity to hang out with you a couple times before you moved. You were living in a house, a rented house.
Big house.
Big house. I'm looking at the picture on the internet now from the county assessor's website because I had to, relive the memories. A giant big house. in kind of downtownish Lincoln. We're not going to give the location away, but kind of set the stage. You were living there with other college-age guys, roommates, all in this giant house.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It was actually a big duplex, like a 100-year-old house. Beautiful house, though, due to various people that have lived there, it got kind of trashed on the inside. I mean, it was still livable, but I mean, it was a beautiful house, wonderful hardwood floors, 3 stories, and then a basement as well. And a beautiful fireplace with buffaloes with wings, stained glass windows that initially were supposed to go into the Nebraska State Capitol, but were rejected. And the same architect that was working on that part of the Capitol was also building this house at around the same time. So he had these extra stained glass windows of some sort of Native American deity or something to do with that. So there were these bizarre these twin stained glass windows on either side of the fireplace of buffaloes with wings. And the first night I stayed in that house, I didn't have my bed in there yet, and no one else was staying in there yet. None of my buddies yet had moved in there with me, and it was like a thunderstorm that night, and the lightning and thunder was crashing, and I was trying to sleep on this couch in front of the fireplace with these bizarre buffaloes with wings that would light up with the thunder crashing and the lightning. So it was kind of an eerie start to a very interesting 2 years that I stayed in that house.
So you lived there for a couple years?
Yeah, pretty much exactly 2 years.
And so you rented it, and so you said it was a duplex. So were there other? I mean, I know you had your roommates. When I came over there, I knew you lived with you lived with Dutch?
Yeah, good old Dutch.
Dutch, and then I don't remember
trombone.
Yeah, I don't remember who else was there. But so was it separate, as in 2 separate places, like duplex 1, duplex 2, or was it
2 totally separate sides? You'd go into the main big entryway, walk up the stone staircase to a really neat old-fashioned stone porch, and then into the main entryway, and then the doors to the right and to the left. And we went to the left side, and there was an exact mirror image of it to the right. And I went in there a few times, but it was definitely very separate. It was even just the duplex, the one side of the duplex was a huge house, I was there. My buddy George was one of the roommates, and another, you might remember Dave, another sax player was, so it was me, Dutch, Dave, and George were the first guys that lived in there. So we had some different people that moved in at different times throughout the 2 years, but
yeah, obviously we're not using last names, but Dave was the other. He was the other alto player in jazz ensemble, right?
In jazz band, yeah, that's right.
Okay, so I know exactly who you're talking about. I just remember because we just started hanging out, and I was able to hang out at your place a couple times. Now I remember hanging out with you after a concert or something like that, and unwinding, and you were telling me some stories, like almost like, well, this place is haunted, and of course I think you're fucking with me.
Yeah, sure.
It's like, oh yeah, really, this place is haunted. But you started telling me some stories and everything. So we'll get to those. But how long were you at the house before you started noticing something was a little not normal?
Well, I mean, it was within like 2 weeks where the major sighting that I had happened. And that it was like bam, it happened right away, and I've never seen anything like that again. There were other things that I saw a couple things move, like objects move. I saw a huge stack of CDs. Well, it wasn't a very big stack. It wasn't like they would fall off, but suddenly like kind of fly across the room at one point. Definitely the sound of things moving, like upstairs, like the sound of either footsteps or like a chair being dragged across the floor. And these were times when I knew, because I was friends with the people on the other side of the duplex, that when I heard those sounds, like I knew there was no one over there. So it wasn't like it was just them over there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so nobody was home. You hear things. Because I remember going upstairs. You lived on the second floor, and the house has those dormer windows. Were there rooms up above?
There was a top like attic that you could walk up, it was a full room up there, that third floor, with a doorway and a stairway going up there. I actually lived up in that attic for a few months there. We weren't supposed to, but I did.
You just decided I'm going to go live up there, or what was that?
Yeah, and this was like the second, after several months after I had seen the particular sighting that I'll tell you about that occurred right outside that door that went right up to the attic on the second floor, right up to the third floor.
Okay. So we're teasing the listeners pretty good here. So set the stage. Tell us about the major sighting. And this is 2 weeks after, or so after you moved in, or 2 months. I'm sorry.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, just maybe 2-3 weeks, something like that. Because it was in the fall, early fall, beginning of the school year. So it would have been like either August, I would say, maybe first or second week of September.
Mm-hmm.
So I just signed the lease. I hadn't even talked to I talked to the landlord, obviously to get the lease signed, and they lived in town. But I hadn't talked to the owner yet, and that's the last part of the story has to do with this particular owner who hadn't been there in 20 years.
Oh.
Who lived like out in Seattle or Portland or something like that. I don't remember anymore. But so there I was. It was like late in the afternoon. I'm on the second floor, up in one of the bedrooms, sitting on the floor. I can't remember what I was doing. Hardwood floors. Everything was hardwood floors unless you brought in a rug, And it was a bedroom up at the top of the stairway, and then there was a hallway from that bedroom going down to another couple of bedrooms, as well as to a door that would take you up to the third floor where that really extensive attic was. I think
and the bathroom was down that hallway, right?
Exactly. Yeah, right. Yeah, down the hallway was the bathroom.
I remember, I think I threw up in that bathroom, but go ahead.
A lot of things happen in that bathroom.
Right, I'm sure.
And in all the bedrooms, to tell you the truth. But anyway, so there, I'm sitting there. It's not dark yet. And I could see maybe, 20, 25 feet down the hallway, to where an open door was going down to another bedroom, and the light was coming in from the outside. And lo and behold, there is a woman there. I would say she was floating maybe a half a foot above the ground.
Hmm.
And it looked like, just like, bam, there she was. Now, that would have, any thought in my mind that seeing anything like that would, freak me out. But it was weird. I wasn't scared one bit. I'm kind of a fraidy cat,
Right.
But I wasn't scared at all. But there, I would say it was a woman. She had, and this comes into the story in a little bit, she had what I would call veil-like hair. It was either like a veil or maybe some sort of a hat or some kind of a veil, or her hair was kind of puffed out a little bit. I don't know what it was, but it wasn't like it was just her hair flat on her side. There was something up there above her head, maybe a halo. I don't know what it was.
Right.
But there she was, floating there, and she looked like she kind of had a gown on, or some sort of a cloak or a gown or something, and I could sort of see through her I remember being able to see through her and seeing the trees, because there was a big tree in the front yard that you could see, through the window, and I could see kind of the branches, at least sort of somewhat translucent, through her. And I remember it was like a gray sky out, so it wasn't super sunny at all, but it was still, the sun hadn't began to set yet. And there she was, floating there for, I don't know, it's hard to know how much time passed, maybe a couple of minutes. And she was right by the attic door. And I was just looking at her, and she was totally facing me as far as I could tell. And then she kind of turned to her right and passed through the attic door. that for some crazy reason, like a few months later, I decided to live up in that attic. You know? But that was the only time I ever saw her. And then I just sat there for a little bit, just wondering, wow, I can't believe I just saw that. That was crazy. And I wasn't scared at all. And again, that's really strange. Now, I could just be some guy like saying, blah, 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 this is something I saw. But what happens then, the next week, I get a telephone call. And it's the woman that still owns the house and hadn't lived in that house for like 20 years and lived out either in Seattle or Portland or something like that. She was the real owner of the house. And she was calling me just to make sure I had the right address to send the check to, monthly payment for the rent or whatever, just talk about a few basic things. And after we get through that, I talk to her for about 5-10 minutes, just saying hi and all that. And then she says, hey, have you seen the woman yet?
Wow.
And right when and that was the first time I actually got freaked out. Just out of the blue, she says, have you seen the woman yet? And then she goes on and describes her just as I saw her, like with veil-like hair, kind of floating a little bit above the ground, kind of wearing either a cloak or a gown or a dress. And she told me that, she said, did you see her up on the hallway on the second floor, or did you see her down next to the fireplace where the buffaloes with wings were?
Wow.
And I said, I saw her up on the hallway on the second floor, She said, wow, not too many people over the couple, she'd owned the house for at least 2 decades or more. And she said, not too many people have seen her, but you're another person who has. And, later on, I met another guy named Matt who had lived, I knew him just a little bit, but we became friends, mostly after I moved out from the house. And he had lived there, and he had told me later that he had seen her too at one point. But I don't know if I know anyone else other than the woman that talked to me that owned the house, and Matt and myself, who had actually seen her. None of the other guys my other roommates ever saw her.
Any clue to who she might have been from the lady that owned the house?
Yeah. That was interesting because the lady that owned the house, she told me, right after she asked me if I had seen her, she told me that she became obsessed with trying to find out who this woman was.
Right.
She went on an exhaustive search of crime records, police reports, any sort of history. Is it possible somebody was buried there? Who knows? All sorts of. She went through just an exhaustive search to try to find if anyone had died there, and she found nothing. Overlooking for like over 100 years back into the past in Nebraska and Lincoln on that location. So it remains a mystery as to who she was. And even to this day, I don't really know what I saw. Was it a ghost? Could have been an angel. I don't know. Again, I didn't feel any fear at all.
And this was not this wasn't in the middle of the night. I want to reiterate. This was, the sun was still out. This is.
Oh yeah. It was like maybe 4:35 in the afternoon, and it was, either August or early September, so it was still light.
So, did anything make you look down the hall? Did you feel, like I need to look down the hall, or did you just kind of notice like, oh, hey?
Yeah, that's a good question. Except I don't really know the answer to that. I remember I wasn't like facing where she was. I was probably turned 90 degrees. I seem to remember I had a TV in there, and I might have been trying to hook up the TV or messing with something on the floor, and I had to turn my head to see her. So I don't know. I might have sensed that there was something down the hall, or maybe. I don't know. And
you didn't have any sense that she was trying to interact with you, maybe like like she noticed you or anything like that, or was reacting to anything like, oh, hey, here's a good looking guy.
Well, I wouldn't have blamed her if she thought that.
That's right.
She was definitely looking right towards me. me. I didn't see her eyes.
Yeah.
Because, again, it seemed like they were somewhat obscured by maybe a veil
Right.
or a hat kind of over her eyes or something. So I didn't, but she was like facing right towards me.
Did you have any notice of her? Could you make out, and I know this was back in the 90s, I mean, like period clothing, or is it more just kind of, did she give off a light? You know, was she kind of not, you know, kind of like maybe a glow, or is it hard to tell?
Yeah, I would say there was just a faint glow.
Yeah.
A very faint glow. You know, the gown or dress or clothes she had could have been like totally like an older outfit for sure.
Any clue to her ethnicity? I'm just. I mean, it was the reason I ask is like it was a very old house, and I'm looking at the picture of the house, and it had some history, like you said, with the architecture and everything, and we can kind of tell when houses in that area were built. I didn't know if maybe she was a maid, perhaps, or maybe or midwife kind of a thing, or if she was somebody that might have actually lived in the house, because it's a grand house. I mean, it was built a long time ago, but when you lived in it, it was separated into apartments and whatnot. But at one time, it was a single family dwelling, and if that was a single family dwelling over 100 years ago, they must have had some money.
Yeah, it was really nice, even though college partiers kind of blemished it over the years. Sure. But no, it was, no doubt, it was somebody had to have money to have that house and live in it. I would say, if I always sort of got the impression she was a white woman. Yeah. Okay. Well, it's interesting to kind of think about that, And I didn't get the sense that she looked like she was some sort of a servant. Mm-hmm. I would have thought that she was, one of the prime dwellers in the house. Uh-huh. Maybe somebody's wife, or I don't know. Again, the owner of the house that I talked with, had put so much effort into trying to find out who this woman could be, but never got an answer, as far as I know, anyway.
So your friend Matt saw her. You saw her.
Yeah.
The owner was well aware that she was there. Did anybody else have anything? If you guys were the only ones that saw her, but did anybody else have anything, like maybe, I don't know, the cold spot in the room, cabinet doors shutting, or anything like that?
I knew a woman that was in the house with another woman, and she was a friend of mine, and they were in there, and then instantly they looked at each other and just ran out of the house. They were terrified. And I've known this woman. I knew her in elementary school. I knew her a long time. But I remember I never knew her to do anything like that. And it was in the middle of the day too. It wasn't like I wasn't trying to spook her or anything. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing. I mean, I've certainly known other people that had eerie experiences there. A good friend of mine, she had also told me, she never saw the woman, but she had also had several weird experiences. Several people had told me about hearing things, and I had heard things too. I had heard sounds, usually things moving or footsteps, like above, on the floor above, or that story had been told me by several other people. But then there were people that lived there that never experienced anything and didn't have any sense of any of that at all. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if it was just, certain types of people are open to that.
Well, that's a definite, there's a definite theory that some people are, like you said, open to things like that. And there's also, I'm anxious, or not anxious, I'm curious to know whether it was an intelligent haunting, and we've been talking about that on other episodes of the show, but like, or if it was residual, like it was like an imprint of somebody that the house was important to them, and somehow their energy is still living on through the brick and mortar of the house, or if it's a spirit that refuses to cross over. But you said you didn't have any interaction, or like something that would kind of have like a indication that it was an intelligent haunting, like there was like real interaction. And you never saw her again after that.
Yeah, I never did. The woman that owned the house, that out of the blue had asked me if I'd seen the woman. I think she had told me that she had seen her more than once. Yeah, because that's why she had said that she had seen her down on the main floor and also in the hallway up above where I saw her. And my buddy Matt, who I became friends with later, had told me that he had seen her up in the hallway as well. And he would have seen her before because he lived in that house before I did, but I didn't really know him.
Wow.
And him and I didn't talk about anything. I mean, nobody gave me any indication about a woman. I mean, it wasn't until afterwards that, like, the owner of the house called me and just out of the blue asked me about her. And then later on, I met Matt. He said, "Oh yeah, the woman." That was like later.
Right. She didn't. So, in other words, the ink was dry on the lease agreement that you had signed before she even mentioned the fact that it was haunted by something.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. Yeah, which is kind of, that kind of makes you wonder if that's ethically. If that's, I don't know. I don't have a big strong opinion on that. But there was never I never had a sense that there was like anything like evil.
Mm-hmm.
Then again, a minute ago I talked about that female friend of mine that ran out of that place all freaked out. So she obviously sensed something. But as far as it's hard to know other than, I mean, when you see something, I don't know, you would know more than me since you have talked to a lot of people about these kind of things. But as far as like an imprint or something, since it's kind of like people had seen her in just one of two places, if there's some sort of, I mean, why did the sightings happen only in those two places, in the house? And again, she was definitely looking right at me or right in my direction. What, did she know I was there? Or did I just happen to see the angle? I was just in the right angle where she would be looking right at me. I don't know.
And leaving one portion of the house and heading to the attic or the attic stairs.
Yeah, like floating right through the door. The door was closed. She passed right through the wood of the door.
Wow.
As if she was.
I've read some books they talk about, especially in a house like this that's been maybe renovated or turned into a multi-family dwelling or something like that. That like they're like the spirits pass through the wall. Well, back when the spirit was alive, there wasn't a wall there, and so they're just kind of doing.
Oh.
You know what I mean? They're doing what comes natural to them, or what came natural to them. Like maybe the doorway wasn't here, but now there is a wall, and or whatever. So, yeah, that's a
good point.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about. So you lived there for another year and a half or so after that, and so some CDs got knocked around. So maybe she didn't like Art Pepper. And,
I had a lot of Art Pepper CDs. Didn't like John Coltrane, Blue Train.
Yeah, she probably didn't like Blue Train at all. And so that was about it. So then after that, you move out. And have you had any paranormal experiences elsewhere? Have you been in Antenna and other locations?
There's certainly been times when I've gotten kind of freaked out. But I wouldn't say, and nothing like that. Certainly things like questionable sounds. One time up here in the mountains, I was up somewhere, maybe near the town of Evergreen, Colorado, which is just west of Denver, but up in the, it's a good maybe 2,000 feet higher than Denver, so you're up there a good ways, up in the hills there. And I remember seeing a bizarre, that I just like this light in the sky that just flared out of nowhere and made some kind of a weird, like, I don't know, pulsing sound. And that was several years ago. That's an unexplained thing that I've never been able to answer. But other than that, it wasn't like it was a plane or anything. It was like I've never seen any sort of light like this before, or any sort of a craft or anything that would do this. And it was just a very unusual thing. But that's the most obvious answer I would have to that, other than that experience I had.
Amazing. So, like we said at the beginning of the of our chat tonight, you are a jazz musician, and if people are interested in learning more about you and listening to your music, which they should, oh my God, Andrew, your stuff's amazing. They need to go over to. They need to go over to, and we'll link to it from the page, www.drewsblues.com, DREWSBLUES.com. You've got a bunch of CDs out, so you're playing. Andrew Vogt goes out and plays as Andrew Vogt, but you've also you got Zorro. You still playing with Zorro?
That band, it doesn't really exist in the form that it did. The guitar player and the bass player have kind of disappeared. I still play with the drummer a lot. Mm-hmm. He's in my Twirling Zucchini group.
The Twirling Zucchini group, and you have a new release with them. And
yeah,
I have
same drummer.
So what we're playing on the show tonight is a track off Action Plan called Fry Tin, which is a cool name of a tune. Frighten, Fry Tin.
Right. Yeah.
Some interesting clarinet work there. And then you had an album out, Cats Afoot. Are you working on anything else coming out?
Yeah, I pretty much have music for 2 more recordings all set to go. I just have to decide how I want to do it. Really, like, right now I've been doing a lot of other people's records. This really great pianist, composer, Adam Bodine. Mm-hmm. We just recorded his album for over 3 days in Denver, and that'll be coming out this summer. And he's a great pianist. And 2 days from now, I'm recording an album with Joe Smith and the Spicy Pickles. And that's kind of a late 1930s style jazz. And he's flying in some people from Connecticut and Seattle.
Oh, right on,
kind of putting
man.
together a cool kind of all-star band of some great players from around the country. So yeah, doing a lot of things. It's just a lot of other people's projects right now. Frankly, I got another session on Monday with another band. So yeah, staying real busy.
Way to go, man. Hey, one last question before I let you go, and thanks for being on the show. I'll make sure I say hi to Zip for you.
Man.
How's Victor Allen doing?
Victor is great. Victor is doing well, and that's very nice of you to ask about Victor. He's humming along, man. He's just he gives his best to you as well, and I don't see him every day, but I keep in touch with him, and he definitely gives his best to you and to Zip as well.
Oh, well, very good. Well, yeah, make sure you tip your hat to the ambassador, and we'll take a ride on the blue train. Andrew Vogt has been our guest for this segment of the Necronomicast. We've got some more coming up. Andrew, thanks so much, my man, and we really appreciate you taking the time out to chat with us.
What a pleasure, Brian. It's a real treat. I'm glad to hear from you again.
All right, my man.
Take it easy.
Down in the daytime, up in the nighttime, I can't keep you waiting, 'cause baby it's showtime. No dirty dealing, just trick or treating. And if you don't believe it, I gotta make you believe.
My next guests, oh boy, they're good. Wait to hear from them. Jason and Courtney Birnstihl. They are honest, hardworking, trustworthy, and professional real estate agents in our area here. And the music you're listening to right now is Jason's band, The Nines, playing a little Wreck Your Body, bringing them in here. They're going to be talking about the real estate angle of the paranormal. Very interesting conversation, I'm sure. Jason, Courtney, how are you guys?
Well, great, Brian. Thanks for having us.
I'm excited to talk to you guys. You guys are very interesting, cool people, and I'm really excited, Courtney, to have you on the show. I mean, you've had like this, you've enjoyed this successful, also a broadcast career in television and radio, so thanks for appearing on a lowly podcast.
No, the pleasure's all mine. Thank you so much for asking us.
Yeah. Jason, you got a winner there.
I've heard. She tells me every day.
Right on, you guys. I'm so glad you called and you're on the program tonight. So, yeah, you guys, real estate agents. We had a conversation the other night. There were some circumstances in my neighborhood down the road from the studio here. Unfortunately, a couple years ago, there was, I'm just going to come out and say it. There was a suicide. A woman hung herself from the back deck outside the backyard near a pretty major street, lots of passers-by. So the house is going to be on the market, and so I was asking you guys just does a real estate agent have to report and talk about these things with people that are buying and renting homes? So that's kind of where we'll start.
Jason, do you want to take that, or do you want me to?
No, I could take that one. In fact, it was actually we were glad to kind of enter that discussion, Brian, because her and I actually we were kind of fighting back and forth about that one, whether or not there was any disclosure obligation there. And my initial thought was that yes, anytime there was any kind of a suicide or violent event that you had to disclose, because I thought I had read that at some point. Courtney didn't think so, and it turns out that is in fact true. You don't have to disclose that act or that occurrence unless there is a material defect to the property as a result. Like let's say there was a violent act in the house and
they hit the water heater.
Or maybe there may be some bodily fluids or something damaged some of the floorboards, or blood stains were covered up, or something like that actually caused physical change to the property. That would in fact have to be disclosed. But just a suicide or a violent act that didn't disturb the property does not have to be disclosed.
And truthfully, Brian, even that doesn't have to be disclosed. If something happened in the home and the water heater got shot, you don't have to say, well, the water heater got shot. You don't have to tell them what went down. But neighbors talk.
Sure.
So they're going to find out anyway. It's probably best to find out from the realtor.
And each state sets their own kind of real estate guidelines like that? Is there different state laws that would have? So in Nebraska, you don't have to.
Correct.
So they don't have to disclose. They don't have to disclose what happened off the back deck a couple years ago. You don't think here?
No, unless something, the deck was compromised, and that's something you have to disclose anyway. Whether it was a suicide or the thing being broke, it's just the property is damaged. You just have to disclose the damage, and you don't even have to necessarily disclose how it happened. But it's really all about the property and whether or not there was damage.
Okay, so it's just the damage here in Nebraska. It's not the act. Like if a guy, and it's a horror podcast and it's late at night, so if a guy has a heart attack or something and he's left alone, he's all gooey, and it ruins the floorboards and they have to tear out the subfloor and all that kind of stuff. That stuff has to be reported, but not anything else.
No. I don't have to say he was laying there for 6 weeks and nobody knew. And the floorboard got all gooey. No. We just have to say, hey, the floorboard got all gooey.
Got all gooey and was replaced.
It was replaced.
Gooey. I think there's a checkbox for gooey.
Yeah. Well,
That's terrible.
It
Brian,
is terrible, and I'm sure it happens.
Get control of your guest.
Right, that's right. Who's my call screener? Okay, so we've got that established, so they don't have to do anything there.
Not at all.
So I'm also wondering, like, houses come on the market, when they come on the market, and has there been something weird occurrences or weird, unusual ways that houses come on the market that you realize, like maybe there was like a death in the house, and now the house is being sold or auctioned off? Is there anything like that, or any police investigations? You guys ever had any like we're trying to sell a house and they're searching for Pablo Escobar's drugs or something like that?
I mean, we haven't had that. We've had guns pulled on us. We've caught people in all kinds of compromising.
Okay, you've had guns pulled on you? What was that all about?
That's it. You walk into a room, the door's shut, and person there doesn't expect a realtor to walk in. They don't know me from an intruder if they haven't been notified that there's a showing, and all of a sudden you are an intruder. So I after that I made it a point to announce loudly, "Realtor, realtor," before I go get too far into the house, because I don't blame you. I mean, if somebody came walking through my door that I didn't know, I'd be on guard as well.
Yeah, I got an open house at noon, and some guy's in his underwear, and he's got a revolver.
Yeah.
But Brian, there have been houses that have been on the market, and they're stale, and they've been on the market a long time, and you're thinking, this isn't a nice neighborhood. Why in the world would this house still be on the market? And Jason, we went in that one house. It was around 168th and Pacific, and I tell you, the minute you walk in, I said, I'm not going upstairs.
Thick. It was thick.
It was thick in this house. And the best description for me of how I feel these kind of things is it's when you're walking in a pool of water. If you're in the pool and you're kind of walking to try to get to the other end of the pool, that's how it feels to me. It just feels like you're walking through water. It's that thick. And I went upstairs in that house finally, and I turned right back around and came downstairs. You just know when you walk in that, no.
And it speaks, Brian, to the concept of, and you've probably encountered this or read about it, this spiritual attachment. Whether it's spiritual attachment to people or to objects or places, a real tangible sense that some folks I think can pick up and are sensitive to, that there is another energy surrounding these places, or the common parlance might be haunting.
Mm-hmm.
But and even in our own lives, we've experienced it numerous times in places we've lived. When I was a kid, our house was robbed and we were out of town. First time they came and stole a bunch of stuff. They came back a second night, decided to hang out and spend some time in the house, eat stuff out of our fridge, use our facilities, got really comfortable. Well, we come back, and the first night my mom and dad stayed there. Didn't want us there, so we stayed at Grandma's. And you got to understand, my mom and dad are very grounded, Midwestern type folks. I mean, no crazy hocus pocus or new agey stuff in our house growing up. It was just very, very matter of fact, very, again, grounded. I keep saying very centered. Well, they're in the house that following night, and they're just kind of cleaning up, and Dad's in one room and Mom's in the other room, and she had this experience, a sensation of what she describes as floating or levitation, where she almost didn't feel like she was in the space she was in, almost detached from the space. My dad, Vietnam vet, again, worked for the phone company for 35 years, very, very grounded, very, very, black and white dude, comes in and said, "Did you feel that?" And they both had this feeling simultaneously. So, of course, we call our friend, Father Pat McCaslin, friend of yours, comes in, blesses the house, and kind of reinforced what they were feeling, that there was definitely some leftover evil, is the term we put, satanic energy residing in that house. And even when we're not talking about evil spirits, I think there are spirits and energies that can linger in a house. And Courtney, you can maybe talk to Brian a little bit about Mayberry, a house that Courtney and I bought last year.
Yeah, very strange. I was very attracted to this house. We had looked at many, many, many houses to see where we were going to move. And I walked in and I said, "Oh my, this is old Italian. I love it." It was the brass fixtures, the wallpaper everywhere.
Lion heads everywhere.
Lion heads everywhere.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
And of course I'm thinking, old Italian, this is perfect. I love it. It reminds me of when I grew up. Well, we decided we were going to completely rip this house down to the studs and start over again. And I knew that there had been a couple living there, and the wife had just passed away. The husband had passed away about 5 years prior, and the wife had just passed away. Well, we took it down to the studs. The whole time I kept talking to this woman this dead woman, saying, "We're going to make this house beautiful for you. Just don't worry about it." Because, just in case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because you don't know. So I kept saying, "This house is going to be so beautiful, you won't believe it." Well, I happened to be talking to my mother, and she said, What house did you buy? Did you end up buying? And I told her the name of the people who used to live there. And she said, "You do realize that that's your brother's godparents."
Wow.
This is out of all the houses in Omaha.
Yeah.
It's the thousands and thousands of houses in Omaha. My wife feels completely comfortable there. Turns out the guy that built the house and her father-in-law were buddies. We kept going. There was an area in the house that every time Courtney and I went down there, there just was an unease about it. And, we never talked, in any depth about it. But one day we both looked at each other and we said, something happened in this room. So we reached out to the guy that was handling the estate for these folks. And sure enough, the owner passed away in that room. And, again, there's no way for us to know. There was probably 12 or 13 rooms in that house, but that one always held a certain, lack of a better term, vibe, I guess, Court, would you say?
Oh, yeah. And I decided to take pictures of this old chandelier that they had. And sure enough, on my cell phone, there were these, I know people refer to them as orbs or whatnot, but they were green. They were green sparkles, 2 of them. And I looked at my phone and I was showing everybody. I go, wait a minute. So then I went to the other side because I thought, well, maybe it's bouncing off some reflection. I kept taking this picture in different angles, and they were in different positions in the picture.
Oh, so it wasn't like a speck of dust. It was actually something that was consistent in all the pictures.
Consistent in the pictures in different places.
Wow. Amazing. So this is the chandelier. So, did you guys do a lot of this work yourselves? Did you contract it out? Was there any did anybody else have any kind of vibe about the house? Like a workman didn't want to go in or anything like that? Or
no, it was never that. It was, and I think it's kind of a rarity to be sensitive to this stuff, and I don't tout it as some gift or something that Courtney both and I have. I just think we're probably open to it.
And I think things attract. At another house that we had, we did have a plumber, actually, who was working up in this upstairs attic area. And they were renovating that area. And he said to us, and this house really, we ended up moving out of that house because I just kept saying, something's not right here. Well, we ended up moving out of it. And he was upstairs in this attic area doing some work. And next thing you know, he fell through the floorboards.
Ew.
He said, I wasn't hot. I had eaten. I don't know. I don't remember. All I know is all of a sudden I'm on the floor down below. Fell through the ceiling.
Jeez.
How does that stuff happen? He's been a plumber for 25 years. He said, I've never done that in my life. I wasn't dizzy. Nothing. And Jason and I were like, oh, God, here we go again.
But, I think, Courtney, it's interesting, but I think there might be some truth to it, that certain people, I think, attract more obvious manifestations of these things. My folks, once we moved out of that house that we were that was robbed, we moved up to an acreage in South Sarpy County. Well, after they get the house built, they find out from an elderly couple that lived at the bottom of the hill that when they were kids, they were up on that hill digging, and they discovered an Indian burial ground. It was a mission close to the Moses Merrill Mission, down 57th Street and a little bit south of Platteview Road. And that house has been, example after example after example. Nothing frightening or violent, but certainly, examples that are witnessed by multiple people. It's not my mom calling me all the day and say, oh, this thing moved or that thing moved. It'll be somebody will be there with my mom, or they'll have guests over and statues will just kind of hop off the mantle, or, again, nothing frightening or scary, but almost as if there's just something trying to say, hey, we're here, or you're not alone.
With 2 candles.
Yeah, the 2 candles.
Fly across a mantle, like come up and fall down off of a mantle at the same time. You just look at each other and go, okay. There's no argument. What are you going to do?
Right. And nobody's on the influence of any, psychotropic drugs.
Stuff on the goofballs, no.
Right. You know, and what's really striking me, and earlier in my interview with my friend Andrew, we were talking about this, and this is a constant thing that comes up a lot with the paranormal, and I noticed it in both or a couple of your examples there. Like Jason, you said your parents' house was built, and there was a burial ground for the Indian mission, so like the land was like disinterred, and then also you were talking about the houses that you're renovating. A lot of times renovations, like you said, you're tearing it down to the studs. A lot of times those kinds of things start to conjure up a weird kind of energy that comes out.
Sure.
And I don't know if it's, you live, like you said, that Italian house, it was obviously, they're very, very proud of it. It was very ornate and probably very expensive back in the day with the 70s, very, very elaborate theme like that.
Oh, yeah.
And if you're, you're living in that house when you're an old man for 50 some odd years and you even, God forbid, pass away in that house, maybe some of that energy gets, into the framing, into the studs, into the wiring. The house almost takes on the spirit, becomes alive. And when you do the renovations and whatnot, a lot of that sometimes gets released, they say.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. There was a house that I lived in. This was over about 75th and Western.
Oh my God, that's not too far from my mother.
From your mother?
My mother lives around Midtown. I used to cross Western Street.
Don't give the address. Don't give the address.
Oh no. Our fans are weird. Our listeners are weird. But I mean, I used to ride my skateboard across around over by Creighton Prep and
that's where this house was.
Yeah, the baseball diamonds. I used to play there all the time. Sure. Okay, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay. Well, again, the person who lived in that house before had passed away. She was an older woman, heavy smoker, passed away of cancer. Well, again, went in there, just like you said, redid everything, repainted everything, ripped out the carpet, did everything. There would be nights about 3-4 o'clock in the morning where I would wake up and it would smell like a bar. Oh. It smelled like smoke so badly.
That was just Jason coming home. he had a gig that night and he came home. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
Fat Jacks.
It would smell so bad.
Fat Jacks.
It was like, what in the world? Well, I would wake up in the morning and out of the vents, this brown, we're talking about goo earlier, this brown something was coming out of the vents, but it wasn't dripping down. It was dripping up. So where it had run out and dried, the dried spot was going upward.
Oh.
And I'm like, what in the world is that? So then I would clean it off. Some time would go by. It would happen periodically. And I thought, okay, this has got to be this lady. One time I'm ironing in the same house, have the iron sitting there. Now, when an iron flips forward and off onto the ground, that wakes you up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, there are children in this house. You cannot do that. You can't do that here. Please, we're taking care of your beautiful house. I'm not going to harm anything here. I'm talking to this woman.
You're saying it out loud.
I'm saying it out loud.
Yeah.
And I said, you can't do that because there's children in this house. Please, that's dangerous. Please don't do that. Now, the third incident in that house, and then we moved. Not because of that, but I was sleeping, and I hear, I was there actually with a roommate. It was a few years ago. Slamming of the drawers in the kitchen, slamming of the cabinets. I'm thinking, what is going on, and why are they so mad? So I was annoyed because I got woken up. Saturday morning, I get woken up.
Right.
Slamming. So I walk out into the kitchen, walk through into the garage where my roommate was, and I said, what is the matter with you? Why are you so angry? So I'm like, what are you talking about? I've been out here. I said, come look in the kitchen. Drawers open.
No.
Cabinet doors open.
Was that the last night you stayed in that house?
No. No, because you know what? I just have little conversations. I guess it's to the point now where I've grown up with this. I've grown up with it, and I'm so used to that being around me that I just say, we understand this is your home. We're taking care of it for you. And, I just talk to people.
I mean, you have to buy into the idea that certain places hold strong energy imprints due to the events that have taken place there and the people that live there. And if we believe that emotions are real and tangible things, whether it be love, when you really sync up with somebody and you describe it as love, it's your energies really in sync. Or if you have an adversarial relationship with somebody or they give you the creeps, that's an energy thing. Then you have to give some consideration to these type of phenomena. Where you can call it a curse, you can call it a haunting, but it is a disruption in energy. Sometimes energies you don't understand, sometimes good, sometimes bad, but I believe it's there. We've experienced it, we've felt it.
Amazing, because I was just thinking when you're talking, Courtney, about you've had these things going back for years. I mean, this wasn't your first time with the drawers and everything like that. I mean, are you constantly maybe perhaps living, do you think, in historic places or places where things have happened like that, or is it you? I mean, you know what I'm saying? These seem like intelligent hauntings versus or occurrences, things being moved, things being shoved, things being opened and closed. Now, earlier in the show, we had my friend Andrew on, and he talked about he just saw a spectral figure of a woman in a house that he rented. He saw it floating, translucent, kind of a glow, but no interaction. He just kind of saw it doing its thing down a hallway, and that was it. But you're actually having doors shut, closed, things like that. It's very. I just I'm wondering, is it you, or are you just having luck moving in these historic different places?
I think it's me. I do. I think it's me. Ever since I was very little, I grew up in North Omaha, around 72nd behind Omaha Hospital, around there. And that area, you have to figure, you have the Mormon Trail that had gone through there. And, right there off of 60th and State, you have the Mormon Museum and, when they suffered that terrible winter. And so you just think of all the all the action that has happened through this area. How could there not be, and I'm not saying that's who it is, but I'm just saying, you just think of everything that has happened in history. And I don't know, this house that I grew up in was full on haunted. And I used to say to my mother, when I was very little, as long as I can remember, 3-4 years old, I would say, I don't like this house. I don't like it. I don't like it. And my mother would say, your father built this house for you. This house is safe. You're safe. Well, in the middle of the night, I would hear music where I would get out of bed, and it was a 1.5 story. So I'd go to the rail, and I'd lean over the rail, and I'd listen really carefully, and I could hear this faint music. Now, that happened quite a bit, and I just learned that this was normal. I didn't realize that this was not normal for other people. Mm-hmm. I just figured this was a thing. Now, I don't see any apparitions. I don't see that, but things get moved. Like I'll turn around and something will be sitting there that wasn't there before. That kind of stuff happens. That just happened the other day, Jason, when I said, how did that vase get here? Mm-hmm. It's just something that I've accepted. Now, I don't know. It doesn't really scare me anymore. It used to really, really scare me. And I get very startled. It's not as bad. It's not, I don't know. I don't get scared like I used to when I was little.
Well, you're open to it, and you've been experiencing it for so long, and some people I think are just, it's a gift of nature. Some people are just antennas to that kind of phenomenon. Whether you believe it's electromagnetic frequencies that people pick up on, or things, or you're able to kind of navigate between different dimensions. There's all kinds of theories out there about people that have experiences, and since you haven't consistently, through your life, it wasn't like one house one time when you were an adolescent.
No.
Wow, it's amazing.
But I will tell you this: there are times when, and I've talked to a girlfriend about this, an expert who deals with this all the time, and she said, sometimes you have to visualize that you have a lightsaber because these things cling to you. I call them psychic vampires.
Wow.
Because I will get the life sucked out of me. Sometimes I will be so tired because even when I walk in a mall, if I walk into a grocery store, if I walk into like a concert where there's a lot of people, I've got to learn to shut that off because I will pick up on people's energies and it wipes me out. So I have to, when I walk into places, I'll put a blue light around me and I'll pretend there's a mirror in front of me so that energy will bounce back. I'll pretend I have like a lightsaber and like they're like tentacles. I'm like, it's like I'm taking the tentacles off with a lightsaber. You have to visualize that stuff because I know people who are listening have experienced that. And they're psychic vampires. There's just some energies that will suck you dry.
You know, even mechanically, they like on these ghost shows and everything, when they go and investigate, camera batteries go dry, digital recorder batteries go dry, things that were charged up, they're just suddenly, amazingly devoid of energy. They're just things in the air, and when they manifest or they pull energy out of, energy is always moving around us all the time. And you're just really receptive to that. That's amazing. Jason, did you know all this before you got married?
I wish I would have.
Yeah, right.
No, I can't help it.
You've had your fair share of some experiences too, my man. That's crazy that you guys. I mean, you're an amazing couple, and I love talking to you guys and hanging out with you because you guys do have like a spirit and an energy around you. And Jason, you're electric on stage when you're with your band, and like I said earlier, Courtney, I mean, you're energetic and you have such a great presence about you when you're communicating through broadcast media, and I'm sure when you're selling a house or buying a house and working with people. I mean, that you've got an energy with people, both of you guys. That I'm sure. Well, I'm sure it's also very enticing, to the spirit world. Whatever that means.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Never thought in those terms, but you gave it something to chew on.
Well, light attracts light. Light attracts light.
Yeah, man, totally. It's a crazy thing, and I love late night discussions like this and talking with people that, I mean, like I said, you guys are licensed, professional, hardworking. You guys got a great reputation in town. I'm not talking to two people on a bar stool. Nothing against that. I'm just saying, I didn't just meet you over at Blind Dave's bar in Millard or something. I mean, like you guys are, centered, successful, well-rounded, intelligent people. So it's great to have this conversation about things that are not every day to everybody.
Well, I think a lot of folks have experiences, maybe not exactly like that, but certainly things that they have trouble explaining and are maybe nervous or afraid about, voicing them out of fear of what folks might think. But I don't know. I guess we're just kind of past that, right,
Honey, we're way past that.
You guys are amazing. What, you got a last story to share, or another unusual house, or maybe a realtor friend told you about, or anything like that?
Well, something Jason didn't quite mention when he said that they were on that Indian burial ground.
Oh yeah, keep going with that.
Well, they actually found an Indian chief, full headdress, buried vertically in the ground.
Which I didn't know, but that was a practice apparently. But I thought it was fascinating that was a burial tradition.
Now, if you're doing something like that, like some guy, like your folks building that house out there, or if you had like a client that bought a lot, maybe that was just being developed or something like that, and you find something like that, no, wait a minute. Did you find the chief? The whole
Yes, he was buried. That was how he was buried.
The whole cadaver.
The whole body.
Oh my God!
Yes.
Oh.
Vertically dressed, full headdress.
There's record of it. So, I mean, at the time, I mean, it was decades and decades ago when they found him. But I think the state had come in and excavated that. So actually, you've got me thinking. I may want to try to research that a bit and learn a little bit more. It's a pretty historic area down there. There was a lot that happened. There's still a chimney standing from the original mission down there. They have fenced off and propped up with steel beams. So yeah, there's a lot of things that have happened right under everybody's nose. this area that we just don't really learn about in school, but are real nonetheless.
That's amazing because I've read some things before. I'm going to try and get this straight, but there was warriors in some ancient societies. They were buried in an upright position or something like that, so they would be ready in the afterlife. They wouldn't.
Oh, wow.
I've read things like that before, and I'm not going to go too deep into it because I can't remember everything that I read, and I don't want somebody.
Even the Chinese, because they found those terracotta soldiers.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I was trying to think if it was like Tibetan or Chinese or even Native American, but I just remember some warriors were buried so they would be at the ready almost rather than lying down asleep.
Fascinating.
Yeah. Wow. And they found that all just down there in South Sarpy, huh?
Yeah, that might be another show. Actually, that could be. There's a wealth there. I mean, there's books, but I think one of them is called the Great Platte River Road.
Mm-hmm.
That there's a big chunk of that dedicated to that site. It's out there. There's plenty of information on that out there. But yeah, it's fascinating and very, very tangible in terms of the way it's affected that house and the energy in that house.
And that was the house that I was at before, where you had the the building on the property with the recording studio.
Yeah, you've been out there.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Well, we were more worried about like bobcats or something when we were.
There's those too.
I remember somebody in the band.
Chupacabra.
Rabbit deer.
Right, or Sasquatch. Somebody in the band was a smoker at the time, and I remember we were doing something at the studio, and then going outside, and we're just because it was out. There's no street lights. I mean, it was.
There was a rustling or something. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. there's something I didn't want a bobcat sizing me up, licking his chops.
Must not have been interested.
Yeah. Not too appetizing. Amazing. You guys have been a ton of fun, and I'm so glad that you called in on this kind of musical friend show for the Necronomicast. Our friend Andrew Vogt earlier in the show, and then now you guys. Jason, your band, The Nines, we're going to put a link to some of your music out there, so we're going to be listening to it on the show for a little bit. And Courtney, you are a doll, and I'm so glad to have you. You put some class on this show. I'm excited.
Well, listen, when you do the Native American show, call me, because I am actually on the roll for the Shoshone Indian tribe.
Oh, wow, really?
Yes.
Now, I'm going to delay the end of the show just for a second, because this is interesting to me, too, because I've been doing a lot of reading about Sasquatch everything, and about the Native American connection, talking about all the different tribes in the United States all over, not connected by internet and all this. They didn't communicate hundreds of years ago with each other, all over North America. To a T, they almost all have stories of, Sasquatch, hairy man, all that kind of stuff. And so that would be interesting to talk to you about, too. Yeah, man, the Native Americans, they're totally in tune with nature and all things spiritual like that. And the brother tribe of Bigfoot that's out there. So yeah, we'll tease the listeners with that. But God bless you guys. Thanks for calling into the show. I had a great time talking with you.
Thank you.
Bet. Onward, BC, onward.
You've been listening to the Necronomicast, a podcast hosted by a bunch of blood bags and produced by Brian Corey and Wayne Brecky. For show notes and other interesting information, go to the show page at necronomicast.com. And until next time, find something better to do with your time.